Today, let's go over the Star Wars franchise when it comes to the character of Luke Skywalker, the Jedi Master who made his return in the sequel trilogy. This is Mike Zero here. If you guys are new to the channel, do make sure to subscribe to see future Star Wars content. Now, one of the biggest pieces of criticism for The Last Jedi by Rian Johnson was exactly how the character of Luke Skywalker was portrayed throughout a majority of the movie. Now, most people wanted to see more of the Luke Skywalker that we got at the very end of the movie, which I will agree that Luke Skywalker was my Luke Skywalker at the very end of the film. That was Luke for me. That is exactly how Luke would be 30 years later after the events of Return of the Jedi. If you notice, they completely changed him. Luke is slimmer, he's got a different colored beard, his hair is trimmed, and he even looks a lot better and healthier in that state because he's a little bit younger, the way he's portraying his image of that force projection to Kylo Ren, his own nephew. And that brings us to this big subject today, is I really want to go over the origins of Luke Skywalker's force projection and exactly where Rian Johnson, the director and the writer of this movie, got it all from. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because, well, a lot of you guys have been asking me on Facebook, Twitter, you name it, YouTube, to talk about exactly where the force projection technique actually came from in universe for the Star Wars franchise. Now, this brings us all the way back to Legends, also known as the Expanded Universe, the EU, which consisted of tons of Star Wars books and comics and video games, you name it. And looking at one of the comic book lines, one of my favorites is Star Wars Dark Empire. Now, I don't know if you guys ever read these line of comic books, but I really do suggest that you guys go ahead and take a look at it if you guys are interested in seeing a moment in time in which Luke Skywalker turned to the dark side of the Force. So in that comic book, it actually goes over the same exact power that Luke Skywalker uses in The Last Jedi, which is called the Force projection. The technical term is doppelganger technique. However, in the Dark Empire comic book line, it goes over and Leia's actually talking about how, we gotta leave, we gotta go away from this planet, and Luke Skywalker at this point in time, he's a servant to that of the Emperor, and he's trying to help out Leia, Han, the droids, etc., and they get on board of the Falcon. Luke goes along with them, and this point in time, Luke is pretty much turning. He wants to help them out. He wants to get rid of the Emperor, but Leia wants him to come with her. So they go on board of the Falcon, and Leia and Han actually think that he's on board, and then he ultimately just vanishes. He disappears. And this is when Leia says he must have used a dark side capability, a dark side power to create a double of himself. And he's still on the planet Biss, and he's going to be going up against the Emperor. So that's exactly where Rian Johnson got the whole entire concept of Luke Skywalker using the force projection technique. Now, in that comic book line, though, it was actually a dark side power that Luke Skywalker used. He only learned that power, apparently, once he was a servant to that of the Emperor. But here's the interesting piece, which may not sit well with a lot of the fans. If you look at the comparisons here in the EU version, in Dark Empire, when Luke Skywalker uses the doppelganger technique and creates a double of himself, it actually does not take a toll on Luke Skywalker. It does not kill him in the least. It doesn't even hurt him. He does this effortlessly and then moves on with his life to go on against the Emperor and fight him in a lightsaber duel. Now, in The Last Jedi, Luke Skywalker uses this and runs out of energy on Ahch-To and ultimately becomes one with the Force. Even Rian Johnson said that was the cause of death for Luke Skywalker. It is a real thing that was the main cause of death, was Luke Skywalker used the force projection technique across the entire galaxy, and that's exactly why he died. Now, granted, I'm not quite sure how, long the distance really was in the Dark Empire comic, but nonetheless, he lived, and he did that effortlessly in Dark Empire. Now, the thing here is, if we're looking at the comparisons here, they do have very big similarities. Now, in the Dark Empire comic, Leia, Han, and crew are getting on board of the Falcon, except Luke goes along with them, thinking that he's there with them, actually escaping the planet Biss and helping them out. Until he vanishes on board, and Leia realizes that he used the dark side power to create a double of himself. Same thing sorta goes for The Last Jedi, where Luke Skywalker is using that force projection technique, while everyone else goes on board, including Leia, by the way, and they leave the planet Crait. And then ultimately Luke Skywalker vanishes in front of Kylo Ren. Even Kylo Ren kind of, hinted at this in the very beginning when they were, exchanging that power between both Rey and Kylo. That force bond sequence where he says, "You can't be doing this, the effort would kill you." Right then and there, that was a little hint that Luke Skywalker would use that at the very end of the movie and would ultimately, cause him to die. But anyways, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about the origin of the force projection technique and where Rian Johnson got it from. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.